writers! So I'm in my last semester of my MFA program right now, and we get a new advisor every semester. So my current advisor just took a look at my bibliography from the program so far, because we have to keep a list basically of everything we read, and he noticed that I don't read too many craft books. Guilty. So he wanted me to read some more and gave me a few suggestions. Now, one of them was Stephen King's On Writing, which I've pretty much always wanted to read, so I will pick that up soon. But basically what I did is I just chose the suggestion that was the cheapest because I wanted to get something read for him right away without having to spend like too much money on something I didn't necessarily want. So I ended up buying Brenda Uland's If You Want to Write, and I got it on my Nook for just a few bucks, so that's why I'm not going to show it to you. I don't have the physical copy. So I read that. And I've got to say, honestly, it did absolutely nothing for me. But I quickly realized why, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I feel like writing craft books fall into two different categories, the inspirational and the practical. And this one was inspirational. It was geared toward people who maybe have always said they wanted to be writers, but are actually too afraid to just sit down at a keyboard and write. So the message of this book is basically that you need to stop worrying about whether your writing will be good enough and just write, otherwise you'll never write anything, which is true, of course. But here's the thing. For me personally, I don't feel like I need these types of books, and I don't think that I really get too much out of them because basically I don't need any more inspiration. I'm already committed to this. I feel like I've already put all of my eggs into this basket. Which, yes, that is a terrible cliche. I'm going to be a great writer. But anyway, what I mean is that really I need to write because I have no other plan for my life, honestly, which is kind of a scary thing. And writing is just the thing that I want to do more than anything else. So I'm going to do it, and I don't need somebody like being my cheerleader or something. Now, I do, of course, get inspiration from other places, like when I read a really great novel or when I watch an interesting relationship develop over the course of a TV show. Those things inspire me to put my butt down in a chair and write my own stories because I want to create something that makes someone else feel something just like those stories do for me. But I don't need a book or someone telling me everyone has a story inside of them, don't be afraid to tell yours, or something like that. Now, that's not to say, of course, that these kind of books couldn't help someone else. They're just not for me. I do know people, even in my own class at school, though, who really feel like they need this kind of a push, so that's great if that's what you need. But now let's talk about the practical craft books. I feel like I'm more interested in this type, but still with them I've found that most of them tend to either be too simplistic, like for beginners, or too heavy and hard to follow. Or even pretentious sounding, which really annoys me. It seems rare to find one that's like just right. Since I was trying to make my advisor happy, I decided I'd seek out a few more craft books, but I looked for these practical ones that didn't sound too simple. So I ordered The Plot Whisperer by Martha Alderson and The Fire and Fiction by Donald Mass. I haven't gotten to The Fire and Fiction yet, but just from reading the table of contents, I think it could potentially be really helpful. Now I did start reading The Plot Whisperer. I'm about halfway through, and so far I am loving it. I wouldn't say I've learned anything radical or necessarily new to me, but I feel like the author does a really good job of making some craft ideas more concrete. And sometimes I think you just need to hear a point coming from multiple angles before it really hits home for you. And I do feel like I'm going to get a lot out of this book. I feel like I've gotten a lot out of it already, actually. Especially because I do tend to have problems with plot. I understand how a plot works, of course, and what it needs to have, and all the ups and downs, and everything like that. But making it work isn't always that easy. When I decide to write a novel, the way it works for me is that I sort of get a little inkling of a plot idea. Like what happens if this person meets this person, or something like that. So the setup to the story, basically. And then, with that in the back of my mind, eventually an ending will come to me. Like the answer to the question, this will happen. So then the problem is I have to figure out the details of the characters still and their goals, and I have to figure out exactly where the story would start, so I almost feel like I'm working backwards a little bit. What's interesting about this book is that the author talks a lot about the difference between left brain and right brain writers, and how left brain writers are good at working out plots, and then they have a harder time developing characters and getting to the emotional core of the story. And then right brain writers focus more on character development and emotions and relationships, but have a harder time applying a linear plot on top of that. She says some people are a balance of both left and right brains, and left and right brained. And from her descriptions, I sort of feel like I'm more of a balance, but I'd have to say I probably do lean a little bit more toward right brained, just because I feel like I naturally understand people's relationships and emotions and how to portray that better than I understand an action plot. So hopefully this book will help me to figure out how to compensate for that and, overcome my plotting difficulties. And the really cool thing in this book is that the author has this plot diagram that she wants you to fill out for your novel as you go along in the book. But it's definitely not as basic as the ones I've seen a million times before. I don't fully understand it yet, but I'm sure I will by the time I finish the book. So, like I said, I'm only halfway into The Plot Whisperer, but I feel it's safe to recommend this if you're looking to work out your plotting issues, and it's not too simple. Even if you feel like you already know the basic structures of a plot, I still think this could be beneficial, so check it out, The Plot Whisperer by Martha Alderson. And also, I don't think it was that expensive. Well, it says $14.95 on here, but I have a feeling I got it probably for like $10 on Amazon. So that's all I've got for today. I just wanted to share the craft books I've found recently. Now, does anyone have any good recommendations for craft books? Either practical or inspirational, because I'm not opposed to reading the inspirational ones, even if I don't feel like I really need it. I'd love to find one that I really get into. And I'm guessing Stephen King's is probably one of the really great ones, so I am definitely going to pick that up as soon as possible. But is there anyone out there who really loves these inspirational craft books? Do you find most of the practical ones too simplistic? Let me know. What are you still doing here? You should be writing. Go!